What's going on, everybody? It's Zach back here with another episode of Clutch Crew Sports. Today, we're here to recap draft weekend. This is a really fun draft for me to watch as a Jaguars fan. My team had 12 picks. We're going to talk a little bit about them. We're going to talk about other teams as well, and we've got a couple announcements and various things to get us started as well that are going to be a little bit different. But hopefully you guys enjoy. Now, let me introduce you guys to the rest of the crew.
What's up, y'all? This is Eric. Glad to be back. It's been a little bit, so I'm going to talk about these draft teams, draft picks. Let's go.
What's up, guys? It's Nate here. I'm excited to talk about some of the surprises and definitely some interesting moments from the past weekend. So, I'm ready to talk about some real sports here.
What's up, guys? I'm Connor. My team didn't have very many draft picks, so it wasn't terribly exciting for me, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless, and I'm very happy for the two App State players that got drafted this year, considering there were 0 last year. So,
yeah, and so I said in the little prelude there that we have some things to talk about first before we start into the draft. So I hope you guys enjoy that. And I want to start it off with Eric here. Eric, tell everybody what you've been up to as far as podcasting goes.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to announce on here that I have started my own finance podcast. I call it Baller on a Budget. I thought that was a pretty catchy name when I came up with it. It just kind of popped in my head and I stuck with it. But yeah, I'm hoping this will get me one step closer to getting going on the book. But I did drop my first episode about the stimulus checks, and it is available on iTunes and Spotify now. I didn't record any more episodes yet because I was waiting for it to be available on those platforms where I knew people could really find it. But yeah, so if you look on there, you can find it. I'm also on Twitter at Baller Budget Pod. That's my Twitter handle for the podcast. And hopefully once work calms down a little bit here, I'll be able to start dropping some more episodes soon. So if you're interested in, I think everybody, obviously everybody needs money. So if you're interested in learning more about it and how to save it or how to budget or how to, reduce debt or how to invest in the stock market, like I want to be talking about all kinds of topics like that in the future. So definitely check it out. Zach, thanks for letting me plug that.
Yeah, no problem, man. You know what you got to do to be a real baller on a budget, though, is you got to go to the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through and pay with $100 bill, and the workers there will call you a baller for sure. Not speaking from experience, not personal experience. I had a friend.
I'm like, clearly Zach has tested this at some point.
If there's one thing that I just really do not like about the city I live in is that we do not have a Dunkin' Donuts or a Krispy Kreme donuts here. So
that's lame.
I sadly cannot do that. But if I'm ever out of town, maybe I'll try that.
You gotta make that like 2.5, 3 hour drive to San Antonio to go find that.
Just to pay with $100 bill at a Dunkin' Donuts.
All right, guys. So yeah, I listened to Eric's first episode. I thought it was really good as well. I'm looking forward to seeing what he has in store for the future of that podcast. And hey, maybe I'll join as a guest one time or two. I've got experience podcasting.
Zach was the one actually who got me into the stock market. So whenever a stock market episode's going to come around, I might not be solo in that episode.
Yeah, and so also we have another big announcement too. So Connor, you celebrated your birthday this past week, so as tradition,
22.
Yeah. As tradition, we do a birthday episode every time one of our co-hosts has a birthday. So yours is coming now, and you've decided to talk about video games for your birthday episode.
Yes.
All right, so we are continuing kind of the theme of top 10 here, and Connor's made a list. I'll let him take it away.
Yeah, so I was trying to come up with ideas for my birthday episode, and in my head, I was originally going to do a giveaway, kind of like Eric did for his birthday episode. But after seeing how that didn't exactly get the support we wanted, I was like, okay, maybe I'll come up with something else. But before I talk about it, getting to giveaways, I do want to give a big shout out to the Regulators podcast. They did a giveaway recently, giving away an NFL jersey, and I was actually the winner of that giveaway. So I want to thank them. Obviously, I haven't gotten it yet, but just thank them in advance and give them a shout out. I listened to they have a new podcast episode on the NFL draft out on Spotify right now. I don't know if they're on any other platforms. I didn't see any on their Twitter handle, but definitely on Spotify, the Regulators podcast. So go and check that out. Some pretty good content there. And thanks again for the jersey, because I needed a new one. I haven't bought a jersey in forever, so that was a good birthday present. But so since I didn't want to do a giveaway, I was like, well, okay, I guess I'll go to my other passion. I've got kind of three passions. I got sports, I've got politics, which I feel like that's probably not a good topic to talk about on supposed to be a lighthearted birthday episode, maybe on a more serious tone. But for a lighthearted birthday episode, I figured that'd probably be pretty boring and especially with what's going on right now. So I figured I'd switch it to my other passion, which is video games. And I'm going to get to my top 10 video games of all time. I've played hundreds and hundreds of them across many different consoles. And I did decide to go one rule. I went one per franchise, because otherwise there's a couple games on here where maybe more than one of the series would have been on here if I didn't go one per franchise. So I decided I'd go take the best from each franchise. So start at the bottom. Batman Arkham City. The entire Arkham series is just fantastic. Except for Arkham Origins. It's kind of Rocksteady handed over the reins to WB Games to make that, and they didn't exactly do a great job. But I was trying to decide between Arkham City and Arkham Knight for this one, but I decided to go Arkham City. Arkham Knight was a bit tedious with the whole Batmobile thing going around. They kind of just made that too much of a central figure in the game, whereas Arkham City was all just Batman. So there was the first time that they introduced the open world feature to the Batman Arkham games, because Arkham Asylum, you were kind of just it was a semi-open world, but it was very, very small. So Arkham City really opened up the possibilities. If I do have to say one negative about this game, is that obviously everybody's most least favorite thing about the Arkham games is finding Riddler trophies. And this one by far had the most of any of the four Arkham games. I think it had, not including just the trophies, but like riddles and skill challenges and Catwoman trophies for the DLC. There was probably like 500 of them in this game that you had to go and find. So that ate up a lot of time, but I persevered and did it, and I swear I'm never ever going to do that again, because it just took way too long. So Batman Arkham City at number 10. Number 9, you're also going to see, if there's one company that you're going to see a theme of on this list, it's Rockstar. Rocksteady obviously makes the Batman games, but Rockstar. So first off, I have LA Noire, which this game was a big surprise for me in terms of how much I liked it. I didn't think I was going to like it. It's kind of like a, 1940s detective game, and I'm thinking, okay, I mean, I like doing that, but I'm not sure if I'm going to like the whole 1940s thing, kind of old school. I'm not generally into old school stuff, but it was surprisingly really fun. The open world, it wasn't exactly like how GTA is, where there was a whole lot to do in the open world, because in GTA you can just go wild in the open world. There's a million different things you can do, but so they restricted you on that quite a bit, but it was still fun just, trying to use your brain to figure out what's going on. It's, an open world / puzzle game, and it was really difficult. Actually, it's one thing I liked about it, is that it wasn't easy to go through and get 5 stars in every case, to get every interrogation question right. Trying to figure out, obviously when you're trying to interrogate some people, seeing if they're lying or telling the truth, it's easy. They're all like stuttering and like looking around if they're lying, but some people are really good liars, and you have to really rely on the evidence and figure it out. And, you can't just make an impulse decision. So I thought that one was really well done. So then number 8, I've got interesting fact about LA Noire too. I'm going to say this with a later game, but I actually have 2 copies of it. One for the 360 and one I have the remastered version. So I've beaten it a couple times. But then going to number 8, I got Red Dead Redemption 2. This game improved in every aspect on the first game. The first game was great in its own right, but this just made it even better. The graphics were unbelievable. The open world was much bigger. I will say if there's one downside about the Red Dead Redemption open world compared to like LA Noire, Grand Theft Auto is trying to get across a large map on horseback takes quite a bit of time rather than just driving everywhere. So that's a little bit tedious, but thankfully there is some sort of fast travel mechanic in the game where you kind of have to pay money for it. But once you get towards the later stages of the game, you have plenty of money, so that doesn't really it doesn't really impact you. I also like how at the end with the endings, you kind of get a choice of endings based on if like you play the game as a good guy or a bad guy. I always try to be good in games. I've never. It's so funny. I always tell myself sometimes I play. I was like, this time I'm gonna be the bad guy. I'm gonna be the bad guy. Like I'm gonna do all the mean things, like killing people, killing unarmed prisoners and stuff. But then I get to it. I'm like, no, I gotta be the good guy. I can't do that. That's too rude. So. But yeah, and funny fact about that Red Dead Redemption 2 is I still have not yet finished it 100%. Like I've gotten through the story and everything, but to 100% everything is quite difficult. And I will say the most frustrating challenge in Red Dead Redemption 2 is a gambling challenge where you have to win 3 hands of blackjack where you take 3 or more hits. Now, if anybody knows anything about blackjack, taking 3 or more hits is just bad strategy in blackjack, period.
That's statistically going to be really hard to finish.
Yeah. So like unless your hand is like a 3 and a 2, and even then the chances that you're going to flip 2 face cards right away is super high. So like you have to get really, really lucky, and especially if you have a hand of like 17 to start with, there's no way you're going to make that possible. So that one challenge needs to be removed from any future use in any game ever because that took way too long. So then number 7, going a little bit back in the day to the GameCube days, I have Super Smash Bros. Melee. I've enjoyed a lot of the Super Smash Bros. Games, but I definitely enjoy I might be in the minority here, but I definitely enjoy the older ones better than the newer ones. I think if you're going to get together with your friends and play, the original for the N64 is still the best, but Melee was kind of an all-around package, and it really expanded on everything, and it was a lot more open to single-player mode, so and a lot more collectibles and everything in Melee, so, and it's my childhood, so I got to go with that. Then number 6, I got Far Cry 5. I was actually have to thank my roommate in college for getting me into Far Cry because I had never played a single Far Cry game, and I saw him playing Far Cry 4, and I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool. So I went and got Far Cry 4, and now I own like 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, but 5 was by far the best. There's one downside about Far Cry 5 is the ending sucks. It is not a satisfying ending at all. But thankfully, Far Cry New Dawn kind of like brings everything full circle and clears it up. So I'm glad they fixed that because there was a lot of people, including myself, that were really upset with the ending of Far Cry 5 after all the work you put in. Then number 5, this is really old school, really my childhood, going with Crash Bandicoot Warped. I had 2 games during my childhood. There was Warped and there was Tekken 3. And that were like my favorite games as a kid. And I went with Warped because I feel like this game has aged a lot better than Tekken 3 has. Like this game is still, it just got a couple of years ago, they remade the first 3 Crash games. So another really challenging game. All the Crash games are, but I spent hours as a kid like replaying this game and trying to perfect it. And, a little piece of my childhood that and I was super excited. I was initially really disappointed when the remaster came out because I didn't have a PlayStation at the time and was only for PlayStation because it's made by Sony Entertainment, so it was originally a PlayStation exclusive. But thankfully, I have a PlayStation now. But before then, the video game gods shined upon me, and they made a version for the Xbox, so I was able to go and get that. Then at number 4, I've got Mortal Kombat, the 2011 version. If I had to pick a game franchise that I probably have the most games for besides Madden, it would be Mortal Kombat. I've got pretty well every single Mortal Kombat game that's not a spin-off. And this game, the reason why it's so good is because the Mortal Kombat games after the original 3 for the arcade were trying to go the 3D route where you can run around the entire stage. This game brought it back to 2D fighting game, classic fighting game. It brought back all the old characters, and it introduced the new form of story mode to Mortal Kombat. It was really interesting, and you kind of how you like went back in time because the world was just in disarray and like everybody was dead. But then you go, Raiden right before he dies sends a vision to his past self, and you're trying to correct the future, but then Raiden's actions just make things go even worse, and it's really interesting. Then at number 3, so everybody looking at Star Wars Battlefront 2 and thinking, what? Star Wars Battlefront 2? That game sucked. Like, there's so many microtransactions. Well, this is the original Star Wars Battlefront 2, not the crappy EA, EA trying to remake this franchise. This was the original Star Wars Battlefront 2 for the PlayStation 2 and original Xbox. And still stands up as probably, in my opinion, the best Star Wars game ever made. I mean, another game I've just put countless hours into just playing in the single player mode, and this was the game that introduced playing as Jedis and the starship battles and anything that any Star Wars fan could possibly want. I'm probably one of the biggest Star Wars fans there is, so having a complete package like that is fantastic. So if you're going to buy Star Wars Battlefront 2, make sure you buy the original one, not the new one, because otherwise you're going to be paying EA some hefty cash for those microtransactions. Then number 2, we've got Gears of War 3. I got into the Gears of War franchise because my dad, I think it was between 2009 and 2013, he actually worked for Epic Games. So I was able to get free copies of the Gears of War franchise. This is also the reason why it took me so long to convert from Xbox to PlayStation, because Gears of War is an Xbox exclusive. So, and this is one of the main games where I went, made my one per franchise rule, because I probably would have put Gears of War 2 on here as well if I didn't go one per franchise. But I was like, okay, I'll just put one. So I put Gears of War 3. It's a slightly better game. And I mean, the campaign mode is just fantastic. I mean, online's fun too, but the campaign mode it takes you through such a range of emotions and perfect storytelling. And, is also nothing more fun than slicing monsters in half with a chainsaw gun. So that's also a good time. And then finally, number 1, one of the best-selling games of all time. I don't know if it still holds the record for most sales on opening day, but it did at one time. Grand Theft Auto 5. Strangely, I've not played much of the online in this game. I kind of got online a lot, like later. I didn't get the game until like 2015, the first time. So everybody had already been online and gotten all their stuff and was way ahead of me. So I didn't really spend much time in the online, but just the story mode, the open world, and and I can go back. I've long, 100%ed the story mode in this game. I've actually 100%ed the game 4 times across 2 consoles. But even though I've done that, you can still go back after having completed everything and just drive around in the single player mode and, blow stuff up and have fun. I mean, literally no missions, no actual, story mode gameplay to take place, and you can still have fun. You can, just playing golf at the Los Santos Golf Club, or going around in, high-speed chases with cops and stuff like that. Just endless amounts of possibilities that you can do in Grand Theft Auto 5. So that's why it's my number 1, and I wish Rockstar would hurry up and get Grand Theft Auto 6 out here. But yeah, that's going to be my top 10 video games.
That's pretty cool, man. I think you gave a good description of all these games. I've played several of them as well. They're all fun. So now that Connor said his list, we all didn't make a top 10 list or anything, but he suggested that we go ahead and share some fun memories and stories of us playing video games. So Eric's got one in particular I'll let him start with that 3 of us are a part of. So the 3 cousins here. I'll let Eric set the mood for that one. He's got a different perspective than me when it comes to that game, but I'll let him tell it from his side.
I don't know if I would call this a favorite moment. Yeah, so one time back at a family gathering, we were all hanging out, and I believe it was on our Uncle Mike's Xbox, I guess is what we were playing on. Or did you bring your Xbox, Connor? I don't remember, but
No, it was Uncle Mike's.
yeah. So Uncle Mike had some old games on the Xbox, and we started playing Madden, and so
Madden 06.
Madden 06, yeah. So I was going against Zach and Connor, like they were playing on the same team, and kind of a close game, but at the end, I got a touchdown, and the time was expired, and but I had to kick the extra point still in order for the game to like officially be over. And Zach and Connor would every time I would try to kick the extra point, jump off sides and keep like running into my like holder, running into the snapper, like or something, so that or running into a lineman or running into somebody so that I couldn't do the extra point. And I mean, this probably went on for like, oh my God, it probably took me at least 20 to 30 times to successfully kick the extra point. And I think what I had to do was I had to like tell them one of their moms needed them to get ready for dinner or something, and they like looked away and were like, huh? And I like grabbed their controller and then pegged the ball really fast. And because Zach and Connor were like pretty young when this happened. They were probably like 7 or 8 or somewhere in that range. So like, luckily I was able to get them pretty easy with a gullible trick. That wouldn't work now, obviously, but thankfully, due to their young age, they were susceptible, and I got them. But
yeah, we were not happy about that because you had scored like right at the last second and like tied the game. Like we were gonna win if we had stopped you on that play, and we had like never beaten you before.
They were so determined to get me, and I ruined their moment. But yeah, and then another moment I have like just with these guys too is like more recently in 2K20, we would run the neighborhood with our white guys that actually look like us, running around. And I remember this one time, like probably my personal favorite. Zach and Connor would probably agree with this in terms of favorite moments between the three of us in this game, but we had all not really had the game for that long, and so our players were like 80 overalls, like 78 to 82, like somewhere in that range. And we went on this 3v3 court and won like 6 games in a row, and most of the games we played were against people that were like low 90s overalls, and yet we were still beating them, and most of them we beat pretty easily. So it was a pretty cool feeling, dominating these people, that were higher overall. They probably thought they were going to like cakewalk us, and we ended up destroying them. So I enjoyed that. And then I got to shout out my friends, the Harrisons, because back in the day too, on like Modern Warfare 2 on the PS3, like we just used to go into lobbies, and they were a lot better at it than I was. Like if you know it by now, I might rant a lot about stuff, but like I'm not a very good trash talker. Like I don't know, I get more timid when
Zach's
I
a
play
lot
games.
better at that.
Yeah, Zach.
Yeah, some of my chat messages I've sent to some people I can't repeat on there.
But so like I would, like I wouldn't talk too much. But man, like my friends the Harrisons, like they just didn't care, and like they would just say whatever. And like our friend Michael that would play with us too, like I mean, they would just like talk so much smack to these people, and then we didn't always win, but a lot of times we would, and we just had a great time with that. So I enjoyed the gaming, especially when I get to play like with these guys or my friends. Like I enjoy that the most with gaming. But yeah, I'll let you guys share your stories.
Yeah, and so Nate, you can share some of your top moments now as well.
All right, so the one that first came to mind when you asked me to do is actually Zach's part of the story. It was a couple of summers ago. We were playing 2K. I believe it was 16 is the one that I have. The last one I got for my 360, and we were playing. It was like Rocket. I had the Rockets, and you had somebody else. I don't remember who it was. It's someone like really good. Yeah. And basically, you just kept hitting like every single shot. And like we thought we were like so good at 2K all of a sudden. We were just like splashing threes from like 10 feet behind the line, like all this crazy stuff. And we had like 5-minute quarters so we could or it might even been less than that. It might have been like 4-minute quarters. We could just play, a bunch more games. And it was like, it went into overtime, like 80 to, yeah, 80 to 80 or something like that. It was crazy. It went to like 6 overtimes, and in the middle of like the sixth overtime, I looked, and we had this somehow we had turned the sliders up all the way on shooting, so we literally didn't miss a shot like the entire game, pretty much. Like I had James Harden, he had like 65 points on like 40 of 41 shooting or something like that. It was just
Yeah,
crazy.
I
Like,
remember that,
then,
man.
yeah, and then we like checked, and then we just realized the sliders were up. We started like testing stuff. We did like half court shots, like all this craziness. And I think one of us just eventually just like let the game end. Like we missed a shot on purpose. Like we tried a full court or something like that. And that was the difference. But that was probably the funniest one I
Yeah,
can
no,
think
I
of.
remember at first it was like like you said, at first we thought we were so good. We were like, dang, we're on fire here.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where I was like, there's something up with this. And then we found out the sliders and everything. And it got to the point too, even before we found out the sliders, where me especially, I was doing this more often than Nate, but I would settle for some 2-point shots. And it got to the point where that was a bad thing. Like if you didn't
Yeah.
make a three, you lost out because Nate was shooting all threes, and then I started shooting all threes eventually. And like sometimes it was good to like intentionally foul to get 2 free throws, instead of having a 3-pointer. So that was a crazy game, Nate. I definitely remember that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's kind of my story that's one of my stories. I mean, Connor shared one that I was a part of, and then Nate shared one that I was a part of too. So I'll share one, I guess, with Eric. I mean, with gaming with Eric's always fun because me and him are about as even as it gets with like Madden and 2K. I remember when I first started out, Eric was definitely better than me. Like he definitely won a lot more than I would against him head to head. And then I remember that first time like I beat him, he was pretty shocked. And then like I went on a winning streak in Madden against him for a while, and then it flip flopped, and now it's like every other game one of us wins, and it always seems to be with like the underdog, like who you think is gonna lose wins. In 2K and Madden, it goes the same way. Like, we're just so competitively balanced, I think, and I just really enjoy those games whenever my internet speed is up to par. That is.
Yeah, sadly,
Yeah.
Uncle Steve and Aunt Julie, if you're listening to this, please upgrade your internet so I can play
Yeah.
Zach in games more.
Yeah. I mean, I will say it's crazy how, like, not just between Zach and Eric, but, like, you guys were, since I finally got a PlayStation, you guys were beating me to start with, but I've, like, managed to
Yeah.
get back into playing. And it's like, I remember, especially Zach and I, when in Madden, because unfortunately, when we were playing Madden, Eric and I didn't get to play too often because when our franchise, we were in different conferences. But Zach and I were in the same conference because he had the Seahawks and I had the Panthers. And like between that and the Mutt, like, draft,
Oh
you
yeah.
and I were like, 8-8 or something, like 8-8 or 9-9. We were literally split half and half on our games. And then, I mean, like, and even in 2K, like, you guys used to destroy me at 2K, but I'm like slowly getting better at that. And I can,
Oh
like,
yeah.
I can
we
actually.
went even in the 2K in our newest 2K series as well in the regular season.
I know it's crazy how, like you said, how even we all are. There's not like one of us that just like dominates anymore. Because like when we were kids, how you were saying that we could never beat Eric at anything, and we got so mad in that one game when we didn't beat him. But
yeah, that is true.
Yeah,
that is true.
Y'all
say,
got pretty triggered that night.
I will say one last thing before we move on to the draft recap. An old. This is Zach will remember this, definitely an old NBA 2K11 memory. Zach, you don't think about Caron Butler chewing on those plastic straws, but
you sure don't. You sure don't. That was one of the commentators' lines in that game, and that was just. But I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, what? Did he really say that? And then it happened again because we had him on our team, so we heard that every other game or so. That was weird. I looked it up, and it's a real thing. I mean, I would hate to be Caron Butler and them just making a story up like that about you in 2K, but it's a real thing. He had an addiction to chewing The straws. I don't know how you get to that point, but if you can see me, I'm shaking my head right now. But yeah, we'll move on. That'll be where we end our talk on the video games. But pretty good segment there, led by Connor, of course, with his top 10 list, and of course, happy birthday, man.
Thank you.
I hope you had a good one. All right.
In quarantine.
Yeah, the best. You couldn't do much probably, but hopefully it was still fun. You had the draft on as well, so that
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the screen, Clutch Crew Sports Mock Draft 2.0 was a epic fail when it came to actually predicting the draft. We got a couple things right, like the Panthers picking Derek Brown at 7. That was the only one completely right. Joe Burrow at number 1 we got right, but of course we did a trade in ours with the Redskins and Bengals, and then later
that screwed
on
everything up.
yeah, that really did screw everything up. And then later on, there was a couple little things that were close on here, but Kenneth Murray did go at pick 23, just not to the Patriots. So, and then none of these on this screen got right at all. So, Clutch Crew Sports Mock Draft 2.0, we won't be hanging our hat on that one, but some of our personal mock drafts, and mine in particular, I mean, everybody did pretty good, but I had a fantastic personal mock draft, especially the top 10. And I actually beat out Mel Kiper and Daniel Jeremiah's mock drafts. I did better than both of them, so I feel pretty good about that. They're supposed to be experts at this.
Timestamp.
I'll give you some good credit on beating Jeremiah, but I've always thought Mel Kiper was stupid and overrated anyway. So
But
I always hate listening to I always watch the draft on ESPN usually because I don't usually get NFL Network, and I hate having to hear his voice like every 5 minutes when they're talking about somebody.
Yeah.
And he will say I was telling them, I don't know if I mentioned this in the mock draft 2.0, but I was talking to these guys about it, how they'll be like, oh, so like Mel, the Chargers are up here. What do you think they need to get? And they'll be like, oh, well, they should go they should probably go for a running back, or, wide receiver would be good too. Or maybe they should go for like a defensive tackle. And then they go and draft like a safety. It's like you clearly have no idea what you're talking about most of the time.
And also the way he talks about every single prospect, since he talks about every prospect, he usually says the good things about him. It's very rare he says, I don't like this guy. So of course, by doing that, I mean, you get even just the first round, there's going to be at least half of these people that probably don't make a all-star team or a Pro Bowl. I mean, and end up not having a great career, not living up to their first round status. So the fact that he does that for every single person, it's like, yeah, you get some of them right, obviously, but you say good things about everybody. It's like, I don't know. I wish
not everybody can be that good.
Yeah, like if there's somebody that gets picked at number 6, and let's say they're supposed to be at number 6, and if you really think they're going to be bad, take a shot and say you don't think they're going to be all that. But of course, he plays the nice guy and says, I love his 40 time, or I love his bench press at the combine, and at this game in his junior year, he caught 400 yards. Like, yeah.
I love Mitch Trubisky's decision making.
Oh my God! I wonder what he said about him when he got that's something to go back on and listen to. But yeah, I felt pretty good about beating them. And then this is where it gets all red here, because the further you go in the draft, the more unknown it gets. It sucks here at 13 and 14 that Kinlaw and Wirfs were switched because they did a trade, Tampa and San Francisco, but. For me, anyways, I got the team and the player right, just not the positioning. And then there's some green scattered across here with Austin Jackson going to Miami and CeeDee Lamb going to Dallas. And then after that, it was over. But yeah, all in all. But I mean, a lot of these reds were 1 away or 2 away. Like, I know if you do the NFL.com point system, you get a lot more credit for that. And so in total, I got 9 spot on right. Eric got 5, Connor got 6, and Nate got 4. So, but we'll focus on the real draft, not our mock draft. So we'll start, I guess, with these top 5 picks, and then we'll just go 5 at a time, guys, to talk about. So Burrow, Chase Young, Jeff Okuda, Andrew Thomas, and Tua in the top 5. For me, anyways, out of this group, when you look at the long-term success, and also before I talk about any of these guys, I do want to say one thing too. I do have a rant planned later on, but this isn't part of the rant. These people that give mock draft grades to all these teams are just complete clickbait. Don't take any stock into them at all, because it doesn't matter what any expert thinks. It doesn't matter what how much success these guys had or didn't have in college. All that matters is what they do for these teams once they start playing games. And you really aren't going to get a good idea of this draft until 3 years from now. That's, I think, a fair enough body of work to judge a draft. So, for example, we can now start judging the 2017 draft, in my opinion. But this 2020 draft is way, way too early to be putting grades on. It's fun. It's fun to do. I'll give you that. But it's all just clickbait. And nobody really knows. But out of these 5, the one I think that's going to be most interesting for me is definitely going to be Tua. I mean, will the injury problems at Alabama continue with him to the pros with Miami? I know maybe 30, 40 episodes back when we were talking about Alabama and their season, I was a little bit down on Tua, but the more and more I've been thinking about it, the more and more I'm starting to like this Miami team as a whole. I think Tua is going to end up having a pretty solid career. I don't think he's going to be one of these tragic guys that gets, out of the league in a couple of years because of injuries. I just don't think it'll happen. I could, obviously, he's got the concerns there, and then looking at, I'll put number 6 in this group as well. I don't really see what everybody else sees in Justin Herbert. I mean, he's got a strong arm. He's the prototype, but the more and more we see now, these prototype quarterbacks end up being a lot of busts. You really want to have a mobile quarterback, a leader quarterback. Herbert's been known to be like an introverted guy, not really a team leader. Another knock on him is his accuracy. So I feel like San Diego or the LA Chargers kind of whiffed on that pick just because they had to get a quarterback. They thought he'd be the best one. I don't think Herbert's going to be great long term. I think Tua will be great, and I'm really high on Joe Burrow as the quarterback for Cincinnati now. I think he's going to be great too. The question is, are they going to be able to surround him with the right pieces in Cincinnati? That's a big question mark, but I think he's going to make big improvements for those two teams, Miami and Cincinnati. I think are going to really improve next season because of their new quarterbacks. But what do you guys think about these 3 quarterbacks here, or anything else with the top 6? I guess we'll start with Eric.
If I have to,
or Connor. I mean,
okay.
He started talking. So.
Yeah, go ahead, Connor. You're good.
Okay. I mean, if I had to, I'm going to agree with Zach on Joe Burrow. I mean, I do think he's going to be good. Again, it just depends on the Cincinnati Bengals have nothing in terms of weapons around, like proven weapons around him anymore. So, it's just going to depend on if they can really get it. If Joe Mixon can finally break out of his shell and be the superstar back that everyone thinks he is. And, obviously for Zach and I know that he was a big bust for us in fantasy this past year. So it's just going to be, and obviously they play in a tough division. I mean, the Ravens are still going to be strong. The Steelers, if they can, with Roethlisberger coming back, are likely to be strong. The Browns are a bit of an iffy one, but, the AFC North is still a tough division. It always has been. So it's going to be tough for them to work their way up in the ranks. I do agree also with Zach about Herbert, but I'm going to disagree on Tua because I feel like the reason why I think Herbert's going to fail is not because he's that prototype quarterback, that mold. I'm with Zach that I don't think I see what everybody else sees in him. I don't think he's really up to snuff for like the NFL level. For Tua, though, I'm going to use his build as a reason why I don't think he's going to have long-term success. It seems to me that, other than Russell Wilson, I've yet to see any quarterback with that sort of mobile playmaking style ability last any sort of length of time. I mean, all the quarterbacks, obviously this is a bit old school, but all the quarterbacks that have lasted a long time are the prototype quarterbacks, or at least the pocket passers like Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers. all those guys, they're not flashy athletic quarterbacks. Their longevity is partly because of the fact that they don't do that sort of thing. So, and it seems to me also that every time they try to talk about the NFL is going to start shifting to this, college style of play, like read option with athletic quarterbacks, it seems like it'll do that for a year or two, and then it'll go right back to what it was before. So that's my reason on why I don't think Tua, I'm going to say his last name correctly now, since I know how it actually is pronounced, Tagovailoa, and not Tagovailoa, it's Tagovailoa, apparently. So I don't think he's going to last. I don't think either Tua or Herbert is going to last. And last thing I'll say is there was like Zach was saying about how these, grades are crap. Well, all these people that were knocking the Detroit Lions for taking Jeff Okuda, there was I saw so many, I shouldn't say so many, but there were a few that were ranking this as like a C or a D pick for the Lions. I'm like, how can you justify Okuda being like a C or a D pick? Yeah. I mean, I know some people were saying that they were upset that the Lions didn't trade back and still get him, but who's to say the Giants wouldn't have taken him with that pick if he was still there? I mean, obviously they needed offensive line, but Okuda was, the by far and away the second or third. I can't remember if he was ahead or behind Burrow in terms of players, but he was far and ahead, second or third as the best players in the draft.
Who knows if they even got any trade callbacks, or what if the Patriots way at 23 tried to trade for them and they didn't want to go 20 spots. Obviously, you never know what these teams were offering, or if they even got any offers. What if they were just stuck at 3? I can't fault the team for not doing a trade. That's really critical if you're going to be doing that.
Yeah, seriously. So
yeah,
but yeah, I'll let Eric talk now.
Yeah. So Eric, what about these top 6 picks here? Did stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of the draft order itself, nothing really stood out to me as a surprise. I mean, these picks pretty much went the way they were expected to go. The only thing that I guess you could say wasn't expected was I figured, and what hurt me in my mock draft was I figured for sure either Miami or LA was going to trade up to number 3 to make sure they got Tua, but I was a little shocked they didn't. I think if I was Miami's GM, I would have wanted that insurance, but at the same time, good for them for not having to give up any picks and still getting who they wanted. But yeah, I don't know how I feel. I mean, I'm definitely in agreement with you guys. Burrow, I believe, is going to be a star. I would be shocked if he doesn't. Herbert, I'm in the same boat. I think he got drafted way too early. I think that was definitely a reach by the Chargers. But Tua, it's tough to say. I trust his ability, and I guess I'm kind of in between on Zach and Connor here because I don't think Tua is necessarily going to rely. I don't think he's going to rely so much on his mobility and doing read options and you know what I mean. I don't think he's going to be like that, but at the same time, he does have a pretty lengthy injury history though, and if he's going to be a bust, I fear it's going to be more so because of that and not because of his talent or anything. I think he's really good, but that injury history is just a big red flag for me. If he didn't have that, I'd be more of an agreement with Zach, but he's a tough one to project, man. Like Zach said,
I can't fault Miami. Yeah, I can't fault Miami though for taking him though, because you gotta try and get something. I mean, I think with Herbert, you kind of know what you're getting. It's a low ceiling. With Tua, he could be a game-changing quarterback for them. I don't fault.
They have Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yeah. So I mean, it's not like they have somebody already kind of
Josh Rosen.
oh my God, I forgot about him. Yeah. Boom. But yeah, so that's all I have to really say. I guess I'll let Nate get some thoughts in here.
Yeah. So Nate, what do you think about these quarterbacks here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in agreement with you guys. I think what most interesting to me about the top of the draft was that it really kind of went as most people would have predicted. All the teams that we said needed a quarterback coming in took one, and even The Giants, like some people didn't think Thomas was gonna be the top tackle off the board. I thought he was, and I changed it my second mock draft. But most people had someone like Wirfs or Wills going number one. But still, the Giants took an O lineman, which we expected. Okuda went to Detroit, and I mean I agree that I thought for sure Miami or the Chargers would trade either up or down, depending on we heard Tua might be falling down the draft. I thought one of those teams would maybe trade down and wait to get him. But yeah, what really surprised me the most was that it went like so, like the first like really 15 picks or so were pretty basic. I thought like there weren't any trades until the middle of the first round and all of that. So yeah, you guys kind of touched on the quarterbacks already, but yeah, this is what stood out to me.
Yeah. So now we'll hit some other positions too and group some more guys together. So we'll go from Derek Brown at 7 to 17 with CeeDee Lamb. So we'll go 10 people here. So between these 7 and 17, I got to talk about my Jags, obviously. So I'll talk about CJ Henderson a little bit. A lot of people are bashing him on Twitter. A lot of Jags fans are like, I hate another Florida guy, another Florida first round pick and another corner. Like, we should have waited for him. He didn't need to go this high. And I mean, I see some of the points they're saying, but at the same time, does it really matter what school he went to? Like, considering that you've had other Florida guys be bust, there's no correlation there. It looks bad, I mean, from the naked eye, but there's no reasoning because he went to Florida, he's going to be bad now, like so many other Florida first-round picks have been. But I like it. They really needed a cornerback. I mean, I think they drafted 3 in total. One of them is like a kick return specialist in the 7th round, but they really needed a corner, and he was clearly the second best corner because we all know Okuda would be 1. He was definitely number 2. I mean, he went number 9 for a reason there at number 2. And then compared to the mock drafts and all the experts and everything, after that, it was a free-for-all. I mean, there was none of us had Damon Arnett in one of our first-round drafts. And then AJ Terrell at number 16 of the Falcons, that was higher than I think any of our mock drafts had him. And there were some other corners that went later too that we didn't have or had way later. So after the number 2 corner went, it was just a total free for all, and it was all over the place with corners. So I feel good about that. I do like Henderson. Another knock on him is his tackling, but I feel like they said his coverage is great. So hopefully he doesn't even need to tackle if he's going to be such a great coverage guy. But obviously things will happen. But I think I think that's something that he can get taught better. And like his coverage is good, athleticism was good. If anyone knows Todd Grantham, the defensive coordinator for Florida, who's been around college football a long time and professional football as well, he said CJ Henderson was the best corner that he's ever coached. And he's been a part of a lot of good Florida defenses as well. So that was when I saw that statement, I was like, that turned my head. I was like, okay, I'm sold on this guy now that he said he's the best corner, college or pro, that he's coached. I would have liked Wills. I've always said Wills I thought was the best tackle. He went number 10 to Cleveland, which I think is a great spot for him. Cleveland did the smart thing here. They took an offensive lineman. This is really big. Yeah, this is Baker Mayfield's prove it year. And I'm gonna go to Mekhi Becton too. They're both the Jets with Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield with Cleveland. The 2 of those quarterbacks, it's their ultimate prove it year. You can't complain about a left tackle anymore. Cleveland even got a right tackle. Cleveland really improved their team quite a bit. So this year, if Mayfield has another year like next year, it's going to be over for him, I think. And same thing with Sam Darnold. Even though Sam Darnold's never even had a good season, some Jets fans would make you think he's in the Hall of Fame, though. I'll tell you that.
all the Jets fans, man, they are sold on him for some reason. Yeah. I don't know what he's done to prove that to them, but the Jets fans just love him.
Eric, you know this too. I know you're probably shaking your head right now.
The stuff on Twitter that we saw, that just That just blew my mind, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
what Zach's talking about is there was I guess the Jets. I don't know if it was the Jets themselves or a Jets fan or somebody made this thing, and it was like, if the Jets were to have the number one overall pick, who would you take? And like only one person out of like 200 comments on it said Joe Burrow. And I'm like, Sam Darnold to me is just not that good. From the little bit, the bits that I've seen of him, and I remember, I don't watch a ton of college football, but I remember his last year in college before he came in the draft, I actually did see a couple of USC games, and they're like, this guy's the next best thing in the NFL. But I remember watching a couple of his games, especially like against better competition, and I wasn't really that impressed with him even back then. And I'm like, really? Like, am I seeing something different here? Like, I don't know. Like, if I was a Jets fan and we'd had the number one pick, and if the Jets wouldn't have taken Burrow, I would have been revolting.
Yeah.
I'm switching to the Giants.
yeah, I'm jumping to the other side.
Yeah.
Their front office isn't much better though.
I'll let you get back to your thoughts, Zach. Sorry.
That's where pretty much all ended. I mean, the rest of the picks kind of were similar to what I thought. Ruggs being the first receiver did surprise me a little bit. I'm not sure about how that's going to end up being, but Judy the Broncos, that's smart. I think CD going to 17. I think the Cowboys didn't have the need at wide receiver like other teams do, but with where he was on their boards, best available, I can never fault a team going best available. So CD was probably the best available at that spot. I don't have a problem with that. Terrell here to the Falcons as a corner seems like a bit of a reach. He got absolutely torched in the national championship game. He's having a good season up to that, but those LSU receivers torched him so badly to the point where he was put on their third best receiver, which is pretty crazy to see a number one corner be switched to the team's third receiver. So I'm not sure about that one. Out of all these, that's the one that I think is kind of the most strange. Wirfs, he gets a lot of hype and everything, but I'm still going to stick by the fact that I don't think he's going to end up being the best tackle in this draft or the second or third. But Tampa's going to need him next year, that's for sure. But yeah, pretty standard, like you said, draft all in all. But Connor, I'll let you address some of the things maybe I didn't from 7 to 17.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll start with the Panthers here. I know a lot of people have been talking about winners of the draft, and the Panthers regularly come up as one of the winners of the draft with their picks. And I mean, Derek Brown was obviously a great start. I did make the stupid decision beforehand of switching my mock draft and putting Simmons to the Panthers because I thought he'd still be which he was still on the board, but I should have honestly thought that the Panthers would still go with Derek Brown because Simmons is more of an outside linebacker. And, if you're going to replace Luke Kuechly entirely, you need an inside linebacker, and Simmons doesn't quite fit that role. So just getting the big nose tackle is the best thing for them. So, but great start for the Panthers and an overall great draft for the Panthers. I know the thing about Isaiah Simmons going to the Cardinals is that obviously he's a great prospect, but I'm not sure how he's really going to do in Arizona. I mean, it seems like there are other teams out there that he would be a better fit on, but he got drafted by Arizona because he was he fell to them and he was the best available player. So I'm not sure if Arizona is going to be the right fit for him. Unfortunately, I think he would have fit better on a team like the Giants or the Browns, where he was, regularly mocked as going to. And then, like you said, Henry Ruggs going first. I know none of us predicted this, and really we should be used to this by this point, that the Raiders are not going to do what we all think they're going to do. So, that was, we were talking about how that was what really started changing everything in the draft, actually, is that, we were all talking about man, this draft is going so standard. There's been nothing surprising. And then all of a sudden we get to the Raiders and Zach messages Eric and I, and he's like, if I had a drink, I'd be spitting it out right now with the fact that Ruggs was the first receiver taken.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a tremendous steal for the Broncos. I mean, they were thinking that they were probably going to and also the fact that Lamb fell to the Cowboys. There was a lot of mocks that had Lamb and Judy going before the Broncos, and they were thinking, oh, we're going to get stuck with Ruggs. But, because of the Raiders and what they did, and the fact that the Jets took Becton instead of a wide receiver, I think the Broncos got a really good steal with Jerry Judy at number 15. I mean, and then I didn't really understand the trade between the Buccaneers and the 49ers right there. I mean, I guess I could have seen that maybe the 49ers would have taken Wirfs, but I mean, there wasn't really anybody else in the draft that I would think, because I know that a lot of times when you trade, even if it's one position, you're worried that someone else would trade up right there, but I don't think anybody else would have, because I mean, the Dolphins were obviously perfectly content with taking Austin Jackson at number 18. They were okay with that. And, some of the other teams that were down there, it's like they'd either already taken an offensive lineman. Like the only team at that point that probably would have maybe traded up would have been the Jaguars, but I don't see why they would have traded that far up to get Wirfs. So I don't really understand the trade. I mean, they gave up a 4th rounder for it, so I mean, they really did need that, but I'm gonna call that a bit of an L just to start with. I mean, who knows? Maybe Wirfs could turn out to be great, and that was a really smart decision and whatever. But I'm gonna call that a little bit of an L for the Buccaneers there. And then, lastly, I'll just say again with like you said with AJ Terrell, I think the Falcons made a mistake taking him. Like they need secondary help, but I mean they could have taken. Even taking Xavier McKinney probably would have been a better pick than AJ Terrell right there. Or if they weren't going to go secondary, they weren't ready to take McKinney, then they could have taken Clavon Chason. They need some edge rushing help. They don't generate very many sacks. So I thought, I put it in my mock that were going to take Chase on. I think they should have done that. So definitely a head scratcher, in my opinion, right there.
Yeah. All right, Eric, what are some other thoughts maybe that we haven't said already about 7-17?
Yeah, you guys have pretty well covered it, but I guess my only thing I could maybe think of with like what Connor was talking about with the Bucks making that trade, the only thing I can think of that might have happened was when the Jets took Mekhi Becton, the Buccaneers might have gone into a little bit more of a panic mode because at that point, then Wirfs was the only out of the top 4 projected offensive tackles, he was the only one left. And because a lot of people had the Jets like in their mocks, like taking a receiver, like taking Judy or CeeDee Lamb instead. So maybe when they took him, when the Jets took Becton, the Bucks were like, oh dang, we've still got 2 more people in front of us, and we really want to make sure we get one of these tackles, and maybe that's what caused them to do the trade, but I'm not sure. But I didn't realize they gave up a 4th rounder. That might be a bit steep to move up one spot, especially since you're not doing it for a quarterback. But if Wirfs ends up being good, then obviously it'll be worth it. And I will say with the Cowboys, I agree with Zach that I don't fault them for taking the best player available, although they lost a lot of players on defense, and they need a lot of help defensively right now, but that definitely makes their offense even more stacked at the skill position. So they're going to be a fun offense to watch next year. And before we go to the 18 on and picks, looking at Austin Jackson at 18 reminded me of like a little mini rant that I could do on Roger Goodell. I mean, he was so annoying during the draft. Like every time the fans like pictures on Zoom or Skype or whatever they were coming on, and they're all like, yeah, and he's like, come on,
Skull,
guys,
skull,
Yeah,
skull. Yeah, he was the skull. But I remember on Austin Jackson, he was like, all right, guys, we got good news for Tua. Good news
Oh
for
yeah.
Tua. He's like,
Clearly,
dude.
they're not taking a defensive player here.
Yeah, and then like some of the fans, like they'd have him be like booing him, be like, "Oh, come on, guys, is that all you got? Do me louder." I don't know, dude. Just that.
Yeah.
I mean, That was so annoying to watch. And then, like, when the Chiefs picked, he's like, "All right, guys, Super Bowl champs. Oh, come on, who's with me?" I'm like, "Oh, dude, just shut up." Like,
Awkward, man.
I thought that was funny, man. I didn't have a problem with it. It was cringy, but it was one of those like
that's the thing,
dad
like,
type moments.
it was
like,
kind of funny, but I mean, it was just, and especially like he was doing it every single pick. Like,
Yeah,
okay, like
yeah.
maybe like once or twice. Oh, it's kind of funny, haha. But like, okay, especially on the Miami one, they're like, "Good news for Tua."
Yeah, he basically gave away the pick.
Yeah, it's okay. It's either an offensive lineman or receiver. Like, so I just had to get a little mini rant off my chest about there because I know like Zach's got a rant plan too. So that's my little mini rant for the evening.
If someone else is going to do a rant, Eric has to step in for a second because that's his thing.
I am the ranter. Like, well, and then I remember on day 3 of the draft too, they played a country, like they had a country singer coming on and like
Luke Bryan.
Luke Bryan came on and sang a song, and I'm like, okay. Meanwhile, like during the whole time he sang that song, like 8 draft picks came in. And, I'd like to know who some of these people are and look at their tape, but no, I got to listen to a song of a genre that I don't even like. Like
It went on and on too. It was like one of the lyrics in the song was like, "I don't want the song to end," or "I don't want the song to end."
Play it again or something.
Yeah, play it again. And I was like, "No, don't.
Don't play it again. Don't play it again."
Oh man, that was funny. Nate, I'm gonna apologize here. I'm gonna skip on to 18 to 27, but I'll be sure to get you talking about this next group first, so you can have
he can talk first this time.
Yeah. So I'll talk first here. K'Lavon Chaisson at 20, the Jags. I love this pick. I mean, I didn't think he'd be available at 20. I remember I was telling Connor and Eric before this happened, I was like, come on, CD or Chaisson. And then CD went at 17. And then I was like, okay, Chaisson probably won't go. I mean, I feel like the Raiders are pretty set on defensive line. And I felt like the Miami was going to take a tackle or some offensive position there. So I was like, okay, he probably will make it to 20. Let's see if the Jags are smart here and take him instead of another wide receiver. So I was happy with the pick. I feel like the value for that was huge because he's listed as not outside linebacker, but he's really an edge rusher. That's kind of misleading title there, but another one didn't go for quite a long time. So he was chasing first, and then Simmons, he's a gadget guy all around the field. Derek Brown's the middle of the defensive line. He's the nose tackle anchor guy, and same with Kinlaw as well. But then after that, he's the next best edge rusher other than Chase Young, and they kind of did the same thing there with Henderson. So they didn't get what was the presumptive best player of that position, but they got the second best presumptive player of that position. So I thought that was a win. And of course they needed it with Ngakoue probably not being back with the team or whatnot, potentially being traded. So another thing with him, who knows with him? He's too big of a mystery. So you have security there now with him and Josh Allen. That's 2 young defensive first round picks on the edge rusher spot. So that's going to be really nice. And also another note about him too is he's one of the high character guys. He's another one. He actually got to wear the number 18 jersey at LSU because of that. So he's not going to be a drama guy. He just wants to win. I saw a video of him talking to Josh Allen on Instagram. They were together and they were just so excited about how they can't wait to get to play with each other because they studied each other at college, both in the SEC, so they were familiar with each other's games. They were really excited to get to be teammates, and Chaisson was pretty happy to be with the Jaguars actually too, which I think is kind of surprising considering everything going on with the team and not. But I mean, I saw a video of him wearing a Jaguar shirt even before the draft, and he did have a pretty good, I mean, I would rate it a 9 out of 10 on his Duval chant as well in some of the videos he's taken. So that means that he knows the team.
Oh no.
It is because it Connor's cringing at this, but no, I mean if you do it kind of weird, I mean fans will look at you you're a different look at you. They'll look at you kind of weird. So the fact that he did that pretty spot on, I was impressed. Especially because he's from Houston as well. I was shocked about that. I was thinking, oh, he's probably a Texans fan. Now he wants to get revenge on them for not getting him. But yeah, I'm happy with the pick there, and we'll move on. I wonder if my rant does fall in the 27 here. So Jefferson, the Vikings, everybody keeps saying that this is a win pick, but the weird thing is Jefferson is purely a slot receiver, and that's really Adam Thielen's role. So I'm not sure. That's one where the player is really good at that spot, but just the way he's going to fit on that team is going to be interesting. I know you can never have too many, but just the style of receiver was kind of weird of a pick there.
Would have been better for him if they had traded Thielen and not Diggs.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, the rest of the picks were kind of standard. New England did their standard trade, obviously. Nate will talk more about that, I'm sure, what he thinks about that. But I really want to get to this rant here that I've been having this. I just need to spill it out because all these. I haven't said anything on Twitter about it, but maybe I will after this episode drops.
Side note: I was correct on which team he was going to rant about.
Yeah, you both were. I mean, you were really correct because you guessed either the Packers or Cowboys out of your top two choices, and I was like, it's one of those, and then you were like, well, I'm going to guess Packers, and then Eric did the same thing, so. You were right about that. So what I'm going to rant on is just the Green Bay fan base on this pick. I don't think this fan base is in tune with how other fan bases are with quarterbacks. And I want to read. Here's the thing. Before I go through all that, if you are at a spot in the draft where you can trade up to get the quarterback that you think is the future, you do it. You absolutely 100% do it. And even if you have an Aaron Rodgers on your team who's like 36, 35 years old, something like that, the Aaron Rodgers was in the same exact position when the Packers had Brett Favre on their team. Same exact position, and then he had to sit. I mean, obviously Jordan Love's going to sit for a year or two, but you draft the quarterback. If you really like the quarterback, the Packers do. They feel like they got their quarterback for the next 10, 15 years. Rodgers isn't playing 10 to 15 more years, obviously. So the fact that you do that, that's a responsibility you have as a general manager to your team, is not to pass up on a quarterback. The amount of times the Jaguars have passed up on quarterbacks in the first round of the draft because they thought they had one is the list goes on and on and on. And and the Packers obviously know they have one, but he's limited there. He's not going to be around there for very long anyways. So you get the guy. You didn't have to. I mean, I know they traded up, but they didn't have to go into the top 10 or anything like that to get him. So, and the fact you never pass up on a chance to get a quarterback that you think is going to be great. And these Packer fans are just so out of tune with everybody. Let me just read off the list of some. So they've had either Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers as their starting quarterback since 1992. Since 1992, the Packers have had Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, two Hall of Fame quarterbacks on their team. Now let me read you some of these teams and how long it's taken them to find a replacement from their great quarterback. The last time the Dolphins had a decent quarterback was Dan Marino in the year 2000. They just took Tua this year. Hopefully he's the next great thing. But from 2000
they still haven't
now,
found it.
Yeah, we don't know yet. I mean, we don't know. But Dan Marino, he last played a game in 2000, and they have not had a quarterback since then. Jim Kelly with the Bills. I know Josh Allen is improving and all, but he's still not, that type of level yet. Since 1996. Since 1996 was the last year he played for the Bills, and they've been needing a quarterback since then, a really good quarterback. For the Jets, Joe Namath, 1968. I would argue none of the Jets quarterbacks in between 1968 and now have been, obviously none are Hall of Famers and none have been perennial
Not Neil
All-Star.
O'Donnell?
All right, here's another older one, guys. Otto Graham, 1955 for the Cleveland Browns. They've been searching for a quarterback. The Cleveland Browns have been searching for a quarterback since Otto Graham last played in 1955.
Yeah, they had some good years in the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah, they had
Bernie Kosar.
But nobody Hall of Fame level or multiple All-Star. A fringe, not a fringe Hall of Famer either. All right. And then I've got a lot more teams here. So we've named a bunch. Mark Brunell for the Jaguars in 2003. They haven't had a good quarterback since then. Garrard had that one good year, but that was it. Steve McNair for the Titans since 2005. They had Vince Young and Mariota and stuff, but they were quarterbacks. They didn't go to many Pro Bowls or anything like that. Since 2005, Steve McNair was their last quarterback. That was good. Ken Stabler, 1979. I'm gonna go through some of these.
What about Plunkett for the Raiders?
Yeah, but I'm making this like a big. I'm saying that the bar is higher.
But then again, Plunkett wasn't that long after Stabler, so it's still been a while.
One really good quarterback, I would argue.
Well, the Packers have been spoiled with quarterbacks.
Spoiled.
And they're they are the most they complain more than any other fan group about this draft. They're like, "Oh, I'm not even going to watch. Let me go to Twitter right now. I'll find some tweets. To read you guys that are going to make you blow your brains out with how out of tune these people are." So let me find this one girl here. I know she's a Packers fan. Let's read what she's got to say. Let's just do this, guys.
I wonder when. Speaking of Packers fans, I wonder what Natasha thinks about it.
Oh yeah, that's. I haven't seen what she has to think about it. Let's see. Can't wait for the Packers to take a kicker at 94 to top up this great draft so far. That's just a running back. Oh my God, Larry, let me see what she says when they take Love. I bet it's gonna be good. I don't know. Anyone know if the Packers posted the draft call of Jordan Love? She was so mad. Look at this. Patrick Queen is there at 26. You waste my time, Packers. I'm done with this. Oh my God. And that was just one person out of many Packers fans. I don't know all their ads and everything, but every time I see that, I'm like, do you not know that half these teams have not had a great quarterback in forever? I mean, we read off some of the times here. For Washington, Doug Williams, 1989, Frank Tarkenton for the Vikings, 1966. I put Doug Williams at Tampa. I think he's been their best quarterback. I know they got Brady, but they've been waiting since 1983 to have a quarterback have multiple winning seasons for them. I mean, good God, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers haven't had a quarterback with multiple winning seasons since Doug Williams in 1983. Are these Packers fans really this arrogant and this cocky? I mean, they just got another quarterback, and he might end up being the next Aaron Rodgers. Like, I just hate it when people think that, because we didn't get Aaron Rodgers a wide receiver, we're going to be terrible now. Like, no, you might be bad next year. You might not be as good as you were, but you're getting insurance for the next decade. I mean, I don't understand. And all these people, and Jordan Love, if he ends up having a good career, I don't know if he will or won't, but if he does, all these people are going to be like, I'm glad we took him now. Like, it just pisses me off when these Packers fans think, oh my God, they think they think they've been so dang blessed and spoiled with having Favre and Rodgers. I'm done with it. I'm done talking about this now, guys. I gotta stop. But it just drives me crazy when they complain about this pick, because God, you know how many teams have been searching for one of these guys? And all right, I'll stop. I'll stop the wheel now. I need to.
Doc's got to go drink some water.
To Nate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nate, start talking. I gotta mute my microphone.
Yeah, gotta take a breather there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because I'm gonna say, going off of that rant, I'm not totally in disagreement here, but that was the one I was interested in talking about. I'm sure that's, you guys are the same. That's probably the biggest surprise out of the whole first round for most people. But I don't know. It's not so much I'm surprised or upset that they took a quarterback here. Like, I can see the reason, like what Zach said. Like, if you are the Packers, you believe this guy is like gonna come in and take over your franchise after Aaron Rodgers, like, go for it, and hopefully you're set up for another 10 years. But the one thing I will say is that I saw a stat earlier today that 32 wide receivers were selected in the draft, and the Packers didn't take a single one of them, which in hindsight makes this pick look a little bit worse in my viewpoint. Just like, not that they should have, because at that pick, like, you see this draft order like Ruggs, Judy, Lamb, Ayuk, all those guys are already gone. Rieger, Jefferson. So like, you're not picking a top tier guy, but you could have tried to make a play for somebody in round 2. Um, maybe trade up for someone like Chenault. There's still some talents there, but yeah, for me, like that pick was still just kind of questionable, especially with how Aaron Rodgers is, personality wise. He's not a very, I don't think friendly guy. Um, I don't think he's gonna take too well to this. I'm not one for locks, but I'm considering locking that Aaron Rodgers won't be on the Packers come this time next year. I think we're gonna have some interesting drama this offseason with.
Better grow up then, because he was in the same damn spot with Brett Favre. I mean,
I know.
He pisses me off too. I don't like Aaron Rodgers.
I'm not a Rodgers. I'm not a Rodgers fan, believe me. But I mean, you saw how the situation, similar situation with Brady too. How his relationship with Belichick apparently was like. I mean, we don't know this all for sure, but the reports were that it kind of fractured after the whole Jimmy Garoppolo trade deal when it was kind of evident that Belichick wanted to build around Jimmy G, and Brady obviously figured, hey, I got 6 more years left. Why don't you hold on to me? And I think a similar thing's going to happen with Rodgers here. I think we're going to have some pretty interesting drama the next few months. See what happens in training camp. But I think either he's going to supplant Rodgers, which I don't think is totally likely, but I could see Rodgers asking for a trade or leaving in free agency for sure. And then that was kind of falling off of Zach's rant there, but the other interesting pick, which for me as a Pats fan especially, was that they traded out of the 23rd pick and went down to the second round to get Duggar out of Lenore Ryan. That was, I'm sure, a big shock for everybody here, especially for me as a
Where
Pats
even
fan.
is that college?
I don't know. I looked it up. I've definitely heard of it before. It's a D2
I'll
school.
search it.
Yeah, I know it's like, I want to say like Pennsylvania or somewhere kind of close to there.
Hickory, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a small school, like type of
It's from
when I
North
looked at his draft
Carolina, and I
profile,
haven't even heard of it, then it must be.
yeah, it's the type of school where like they got the bleachers and you watch his tape and there's like people like just chilling out behind the end zone.
2,700 students. That's how
Yeah,
small.
that type of
Wow.
school. And I watch his highlights and he does, he did ball out in that level, but it's worrying. Just like, I don't know, that's a very interesting pick. I think I'm personally like really interested to see how he does because I think the athleticism's there. I think he's gonna come in year one and make a big impact on special teams. I think he can step in and be the punt returner, which the Pats have needed. They've had Edelman doing it, but he's just too valuable and too, I don't want to say fragile, but he's getting older. You don't want to have him get hurt on a dumb punt return when he's your best wide receiver. So I think this guy definitely comes in and fills a huge need, but I don't know that picking him with your first pick in the draft is I think it's just a risky move, especially when there's guys like Murray. We talked about this before the draft. I would like to have him take one of those linebackers, or obviously receiver is kind of the big thing that people like to say about the Pats. But yeah, so I'm excited about the pick. I'm a little bit nervous because I could definitely see them going the Obi Melifonwu route. Kind of combine freak safety who doesn't pan out in the league. We saw him just get released actually by the Pats earlier to make room for this guy. So it'll be interesting. It's definitely one to watch to see if he can make the jump from D2 to the 6-time, Super Bowl champs.
All right, Eric, what do you think about the whole Love situation with Green Bay, and maybe talk about Chase on a little bit too?
Yeah, well, for Chase on, I'm very excited about him because I was obviously in the same boat as you that I thought for sure that he was going to be gone by the time we picked. And then at that point, I wasn't really sure what were we going to do. Like, were we going to take one of these middle tier O linemen or middle tier wide receivers, and which would have been okay, but I think instead the Jaguars scored, one of the more elite prospects, at their positions that was available, and it fills a big need for us at the same time. So I am totally on board with this pick. And as for Jordan Love, it's tough to say because while Aaron Rodgers was in the same position and, where he fell down the draft and everything, and then Green Bay ended up picking him, this situation's a little more different though, because Aaron Rodgers was projected to be a top prospect in the year he got drafted. So the fact that he fell all the way down into the 20s was a huge shocker. I actually remember that draft, and they kept showing him like every 2 seconds, like, oh, maybe this will be the team that picks him. Well, maybe this will be the team that picks him. And it just kept going, and then he finally got picked. But whereas Jordan Love, I mean, it was kind of a wild card on where he was going to go, but he wasn't projected to be up there with, Burrow and Tua and Herbert. So it wasn't as big of a surprise that he fell. So I can see why Packers fans would be upset in terms of the winning now mentality. If you're looking at it, if you're a Packers fan and you're wanting to go into the season with the mentality of winning right now, then I could see the frustration with the pick. But I've always been more of a long-term looking down the road guy when I value prospects and stuff like that. So I'm in agreement with Zach that, if the Packers think that this guy could be the future, then it was obviously the smart move to go get him. I haven't seen much of Jordan Love play, with him being from Utah State, but from the little bit that I've seen about him and from what I've read about him, I don't know if he's going to be a great quarterback in the NFL, but if Green Bay sees it in him and they believe in him, then they absolutely should have made this pick. And to make it a little more lighthearted after Zach's rant, I'm going to do a super cheesy joke here. And at pick 31, I'm just
cheesy
gonna say,
Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I'm going to say that Jeff Gladney is glad that he got drafted in the first round. If anybody was still feeling a little,
tense,
serious and tense after Zach's rant, hopefully that'll. Yeah, that was terrible. But
well, don't worry. I have to join in on the party. I have a little mini rant at the end of when we're done talking about the picks that I'm gonna do. But
all right. I'll be looking forward to that. So.
All right. Well, I mean, I feel like 27 to 32 isn't exact significant, so we don't need to talk about them.
Yeah.
But give us your opinion on Love, and then you can give your mini rant.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I will say with Jordan Love, at least for the Packers' sake, is that if I was the Packers fans, honestly, I would be, other than Burrow, because Burrow is predicted to be awesome and, had this great season and blah, blah, blah. Other than Burrow, but comparing him to Tua and Herbert, I would actually be more optimistic as a fan of the Packers about Jordan Love playing out in the long term, because the fact that, obviously, like you said, he's not going to start right away. They've got Aaron Rodgers. The fact that he's going to get those 1 or 2 seasons playing underneath a potential Hall of Fame quarterback, the experience that you get, like, just from these quarterbacks. I mean, because they always talk about, bringing in mentor quarterbacks for these, young quarterbacks, but they're really just like washed up old has-been quarterbacks that they're like, oh, well, they're going to be like a mentor. It's like, well, they're not really.
I agree.
Yeah, it's like what are they going to teach them? These guys were never very good anyway. They're just old. So the fact that he's going to, get experience playing behind a potential Hall of Fame quarterback is invaluable. Whereas, Tua, maybe not Herbert right away, because the Chargers have said that they're committed to Tyrod, but the Browns said that too with him and Mayfield. So we'll see how long that lasts. But
dang, is Tyrod Taylor going to get Tyrod Taylored again?
Hey, well, the Bills didn't do that to him. But
No, the Browns did.
but yes, yeah, they did. But with Burrow and Tua and Herbert, they're all going to get thrown in there right away, which in some ways, is not good for them because they're not. It's just go perform, and if they don't perform, it sucks. But Love's going to get the experience playing behind Rodgers, so that's why if I'm a Packers fan, I'd be more optimistic about Jordan Love. Even if he's not, he can grow into something better by playing underneath Rodgers. So, yeah, like you said, I don't understand all the frustration. I do get being a little frustrated about trading up because the three teams ahead of them were obviously not going to take a quarterback. Like the Seahawks have Russell Wilson, the Ravens have Lamar Jackson, and the Titans, they have Ryan Tannehill, which he's not a superstar, but they just gave him a big contract, so they're not going to take a quarterback. So I do see the frustration on that side of it because, again, like I said, they weren't going to take a quarterback, and maybe someone was going to trade up back into the first round, but I didn't see that as likely because, there was all the talk that, maybe the Patriots will take Jordan Love, that they were going to trade back in, but Belichick went on record and said they weren't going after Love. So, but yeah, that's my thought on Love. That I would be optimistic if I was a Packers fan. It worked out for Rodgers. Obviously, Rodgers was a better prospect, but he got the 1 or 2 seasons playing under Brett Favre, and look at him now. So, we'll see. We'll see about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, as for my little mini rant about this to join in, I have to rant on the TV stations for how many freaking commercials they were doing during the draft. It seems like this doesn't happen when they do the live draft. They'll do maybe 5, 6, or 7 picks and then go to commercial. This time it was they do 2 picks and go to commercial. Every single time.
Yeah.
And especially in the first round, it's not as bad because teams are usually taking longer in the first round, so you're not going to get the pick anyway. But especially on day 2 with the second and third round, those picks are coming in really fast. They'll make the pick and then 2 minutes later the pick is in again. But then they'll go to commercial, so that we're just sitting here waiting when obviously their pick is in and the next team's already on the clock and they've already probably made their pick. But, we're not announcing them because we're on a commercial here. And the other thing about that was so bad was the fact that obviously Zach and Eric were discussing this about how it seemed like whenever the Jaguars were up, they'd always go to commercial before the Jaguars pick. But I thought it was the worst offense when you had the teams that didn't have a first round pick, like the Steelers or the Bills. And I noticed this when I was watching the draft. I was like, all right, it's time for the Steelers pick. We finally get a draft pick. We, 40 some picks into the draft, or maybe 50 some. I can't remember exactly the number. We finally have a pick, and I'm all excited for it. And then commercial. It's what? Why couldn't you do that before the Dolphins pick? They've already had 3 picks. We haven't had a pick yet, and you're going to go to commercial right before our pick? That's why. And then, obviously, like you said with Roger Goodell, he's like, oh, come on, Steelers fans, you got to pick, let's go. But then, and then the same thing for the Bills fans. They did it to the Bills, too. The Bills hadn't had a pick all draft, and, they're at spot 51 or whatever, and then commercial. It's I get you want to make money and everything, and commercials are a part of TV, but it just seemed a little bit too excessive this year than it was in past years.
I definitely agree with that.
It just kind of ruined the whole experience. Even on my birthday, obviously, again, like I said, I get the first round takes longer, but it just felt I'm not even watching the draft. If I really wanted to, follow the draft, I feel like I'd have a better time just kind of following it on my phone and playing on my PlayStation than watching it on TV and watching 5,000 commercials.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that, but as far as the commercial before the pick, I told you in the group chat, I'm just used to it now as a Jags fan. I can't remember. Unless they had pick
Seriously,
number 1, I think would be the only case that they wouldn't have a commercial before the pick, and even then they would do national anthem, commercial, and then just right away we go with the pick. I think they'd probably do that. But I will say with this draft, because it was the whole online thing and because it was so delayed with the commercials, you really had to be careful about Twitter if you didn't want to get spoiled. I don't know how these people do this, I had to mute like 5 accounts because I saw one instance where like they were like T Higgins has been selected as the first pick in the second round, and it on the TV, and my TV isn't that slow here compared to the normal TV. An average person, I think it's pretty average. They weren't even like hardly on the clock yet. It didn't even say pick is in, and people already knew T Higgins was out.
Oh
So
yeah,
you had to
I
be
just didn't
really
check
careful.
Twitter.
Yeah, no, you had to. I was just on there a little bit because I think surely they're not gonna have a pick in yet, and sure enough, somebody did. I was like, I'm gonna mute you, so I had to mute like 5 accounts. I don't know if Eric or Nate did the same thing or not, but
No,
Twitter
I
was
just stayed off my phone. Like,
Yeah.
I just had like our messenger group chat up. I don't
Yeah.
have many like notifications on Twitter for like when people tweet, so like I was able to avoid that stuff, thankfully.
yeah. But yeah, I guess this is gonna wrap this up, guys. We had a good recap of the first round of the draft and some of the analysis for other picks as well.
I'll
yeah.
say one more thing really quickly too. I mentioned at the start I'm really happy. I have a question for you, Zach. I didn't see. Did that USF guy get drafted? Mitchell Wilcox?
No,
Did
he didn't
drafted?
actually.
I
don't.
Okay.
I'm sure he might have signed, but yeah, he didn't. USF had 0.
He got picked up by either
Well,
the Browns or Cleveland. I saw that. I mean, by Browns or Bengals.
the Browns.
I was one of the
Bengals,
orange
okay.
Ohio teams.
Well, that's good because the Browns have like 10 tight ends, so he wouldn't have made that team. But the Bengals, he
He's
might.
joined the Bengals.
Bengals,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
right.
well,
be
that's
interesting.
why I will say I was super happy for. Obviously, like I said, App State had 0 draft picks last year, and like the year before we had 1, but it was like a 6th round pick, and I had no idea who the guy was. So I was really happy for Darrington Evans got drafted by the Titans in the 3rd round. I think he'll be a great fit on that team, and also this was a bit more upsetting to me that Akeem Davis-Gaither, first of all, that he fell to the 4th round. He was projected to be like a top 3rd round pick, and he fell all the way to the 4th because I did a little mini rant about this on Twitter too, that like, the reason why he was falling is that all these lower ranked linebackers were getting picked over him because they went to, big name schools, whereas even though he was a higher rated linebacker, they were passing on him because he went to App State. So that was a little frustrating. But then, obviously I'm happy that he got drafted, but he unfortunately got drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, you can't root for him.
It's like, come on, man. Like, if you had to, like, the Ravens and the Bengals, like, those two teams is like, I really don't want you to get drafted by them, but he got drafted by the Bengals. It's like, so.
That's like
but
that's like me with Marlon Mack because he went to USF also.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And
'cause
he's on the
the
Colts now, and
Yeah.
he's their main guy. I mean, I don't know what Taylor will do for him. He might jump him, but still, it pains me every time I watch the Colts and Marlon Mack
You're kind of
play.
like you're kind of like, whoa, wait, no.
Yeah.
All I'll say for Gaither is that he can make all the sacks he wants, but I better not see him sacking Roethlisberger anytime next season. Otherwise, I'll get a little upset.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, guys, I'll wrap this one up. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Thank you all for listening and watching, however you did so. Hopefully the mood has been calmed a little bit since I haven't gotten that worked up in a while. So thanks for sticking through with that, and make sure to catch us next week. And remember, be clutch.
Bye.
See ya.
Peace.